Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial. Go to audibletrial.com/Rushmore. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff, and I'm joined as always by my good friends Richard.
Hello.
And Michael.
Howdy.
Richard and Michael, they like to deliberate and debate, and this week's debate is regarding the Mount Rushmore of Doppelgangers. Michael, why?
This is my choice, and I, for the life of me, I have no idea. It could be that I saw something on TV. It could be that I have a personal story to tell.
Oh.
Ooh.
But I don't know why. Maybe I just like the word. Maybe I just like words with like the little A and the two little hats on top of it. And like doppelganger.
Wait a second.
Umlauts.
Richard, does this look like the Michael Winfield?
It looks a little too much like Michael Winfield for my taste.
Yeah, okay. Michael Winfield, what sullen musician used to sing songs with the Smiths that you used to kind of enjoy his music a lot? It's like he's searching. Oh my God. He's looking up Michael Winfield's Facebook profile.
Malfazord.
Malfazord. Okay, that's close enough.
Close enough, yeah.
Maz Morrissey.
The clone of me, or the doppelganger of me, doesn't know how to read.
Doesn't know how to
or
read.
to type, or how to internet. That's how do you tell the difference.
Well, so it might be something personal, something you find fascinating in culture.
I think the difference between something that's like, this entire season we've been talking about like weird impersonators and kind of these weird dark things. I think what makes a doppelganger is like there's a strange dark otherness to it. It's not just you look like someone else. Mm-hmm. It's like your eyes are just kind of shifting back and forth. And you're like, what's up with that guy?
That's funny, that judgment.
What's up with that?
The judgment and how you feel about that person is something that I haven't my whole life really associated with doppelganger. I thought it could almost be just denote a lookalike. So it didn't always have that.
But maybe it's just the little hat on the A, the little German thing that makes it evil.
That's what makes it a little bit evil, yeah.
Yeah, historically, I mean, you guys probably both went to the wiki when you started tackling this subject, but the idea of a twin stranger or the double walker being the or double goer being the translation of the word doesn't really imply a value judgment about who this person is, or they're good or bad. They could be a good person according to that word.
Who is the good doppelganger in this world?
Yeah, I don't know.
You never hear that in the
well,
news.
If Hitler had a doppelganger.
Was he the good one?
Maybe he was the good one.
Maybe
that's
he was the good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the good twin, not the evil one. It's funny, when we started discussing this, I went to this website called Twin Strangers.
Oh.
And you can put in a photo of yourself and you can find your twin stranger from
that's fun.
Around the world. And what's funny is the first thing you do when you upload a photo is, it was like, I wanted to find a photo that looks like me, is what I went to go. Oh, yeah. I'm not just going to pick any I'm looking around on Facebook
for photos
that I think look like me. So I'm already making a value judgment about what is the meaning handsome or meaning like
no, hold on.
Younger.
Let me find the one from 15 years ago.
Yeah, 15 years ago.
I want to see. I want to know who looks like me from when I was a kid.
Yeah. So to participate in this, you have to upload a photo, and so I'm looking around, filtering for something that I think looks like me. So it's already a value judgment impacting this whole doppelganger thing. So, and I'm probably uploading the evil me, not the nice me. Yeah.
Yeah, I did that, and it came up with Brad Pitt.
You did?
Yeah, that's what it came up with.
I've been meaning to tell you that you look just like him. So in development for a while, there was a movie called Chad Schmidt about a guy who was going to be starring Brad Pitt,
but
he'd play a guy named Chad Schmidt who comes to Hollywood and looks like Brad Pitt. I think that was in the post John Malkovich being John Malkovich, Spike Jones kind of thing. So, okay, so Michael chose it, so Richard will start.
Okay, so my first choice is Abraham Lincoln's doppelganger.
Oh. Was he a vampire hunter?
He was not a vampire hunter, unfortunately, as far as I know. So the story goes that Abraham Lincoln, on the night of his election, swore that he saw his double looking when he was glimpsing a looking glass, and that his double actually rose up from the couch, and the doppelganger disappeared.
I don't think Abraham Lincoln was fit to be president.
This
The
is
night of his election, the first thing he sees is
Wow.
like his crazy pipe dream.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, over the years, Lincoln tried to repeat this, tried to catch his doppelganger. See, he wasn't a vampire hunter, he was a doppelganger hunter. And he said that there's one other occasion that he said that he was able to see his doppelganger.
It's because he wore a dark suit, wore a top hat, and had a beard. He looked just like me.
Just like me. I've seen what I look like on the bills. I know what I look like. So either there were Lincoln impersonators a long time before President's Day mattress sales.
Yeah.
Was he saying
were a thing.
"party on, dude" as well?
He may have traveled back in a phone booth. But this is kind of my point, that it's very possible, and apparently Mary Todd Lincoln thought this was like a horrible omen for his presidency.
She was crazy, right?
She was also batshit
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
And I'm suggesting that maybe he was batshit crazy too.
Okay.
Because I've seen a lot of things in my life. I've never seen a doppelganger. I take that back. I did see someone who looked so much like me. It was like really like scary. He looked like me, but with a touch more Sean Astin.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is I saw Sean
You saw
Astin,
Sean Astin.
basically. But
When, in person? When did this happen?
no, I didn't see Sean Astin.
Did you
but
have
I
a dance fight or anything with your lookalike? Did you like a
I
cat
told-
in the mirror?
I made sure I did not make. Actually, it was at a bar, and it was karaoke bar. It was the place down in. I can't remember the name of it. Not important, because I purposely went out of my way to not make any contact with him or anything like that.
It's the laws, Newtonian laws of
Yeah,
physics.
I thought there would be if we actually like talked to each other or touched.
Yeah.
That somehow we would have a rift in the space-time continuum. So I thought that was just a no-go. Have you guys ever? Well, you and Jacob for a while.
Well,
Our friend Jacob Dubois.
yeah, we have a good friend who we vaguely look alike.
But you
like-
also played kickball on the
Yeah.
same team.
Yeah.
So
But
therefore, you're like
we both wore dark
doppelgangers.
rim glasses and vaguely kind of looked alike.
Yeah.
But there's one time that one of our drunk friends, I guess what would happen is we would be at the kickball bar, and sometimes I would get his tab,
Oh.
and sometimes it would go to him.
Oh.
And one time, one of our friends, Mitchie, when she was super drunk in Vegas at a kickball tournament, she was screaming in like Jacob's face, thinking it was me, or screaming in my face. There's
One
a
of the
picture of
two.
someone getting screamed at, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Wrong person.
wrong person.
In the 1800s, I think, like Shakespeare's time. In so many Shakespeare plots, there are twins or people who are lookalikes or things. I mean, it's also in like Mark Twain. There are people who are mistaken for each other. Or who was that Richard Gere film, Summersby, where there's somebody who looked enough alike the other person.
That he goes off to war.
that
He goes off to Civil War, and he comes back.
He comes back, and in the age that existed before photographs, where you could hold on to a photograph to remember somebody's likeness, or motion pictures, or electronic documents, I wonder if it was harder to remember what somebody even looked like, or easier to be an imposter for somebody, or did people not hold each other up to that much scrutiny, or mostly your face is covered with shit or dirt?
Or
there was just like the document of you was, if you were rich enough, there was a painting of you.
Yeah.
And then
That's it.
Then
That's
you
it.
kind of, if you have a painting of yourself, you're like, well, they got to be rich.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do is get someone to paint you, and then you can pass yourself off as rich, because only rich people have
That's your Amex.
gorgeous oil paintings. Yeah.
That's your down payment on a chariot.
That's your black Amex card.
Do you think it was easier to mistake people for each other back in the day?
it must have been. To your point,
Abraham Lincoln thought that this looking in the mirror was somebody else or whatever he saw.
there were a lot of. I mean, I can't draw a comparison today because there's a lot of weird superstitious shit that's out there.
Yeah.
But man, we were a weird superstitious
Oh,
people
yeah, yeah.
back not
Yeah.
too long ago. I mean,
Well, you didn't have science to try to solve your problems. You had just this kind of supernatural shit like
yeah,
that. So,
exactly.
yeah.
And again, I think my big takeaway out of this is that our greatest president may have been like loonier than a
Yeah.
$3 bill.
All right. Well, that's
That he is not on. He is not on.
I'm going to
$3
start
bill.
doing kind of interesting. I'm going to start doing interesting things
Finally,
Good Lord.
130
About time.
episodes in. I'm going to start doing interesting things.
because of its Lincolnness, and because he came out swinging with it. This is already etched into the Mount Rushmore.
Wow,
and
impressive.
It might be chiseled off if he comes up with something, or you come up with something even more Rushmore-y. But this is pretty damn Rushmore-y, so I'm just going to say. Not rosemary, like they have on the breadsticks at Olive Garden. It's a Rushmore. Okay. Michael Winfield, go.
Well, I want to talk about my MyClone.
Whoa.
In my freshman year of college, I had a roommate named Tejal, and he got a nickname named T-Bone because there was some doofus in our hall that could not remember his name. So he just went to T-Bone.
T-Bone.
And then there you go. At some point, there was someone on campus that looked a lot like Tejal.
Oh, wow.
And so we call him the T-Clone.
Okay.
And then Tejal said, "Oh, well, there's the guy that looks like you, right?" And I'm like, "Who?" And he's like, "The MyClone."
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, "No." I was like, 5'10", white, brown, floppy hair guy at UCSB. There must be literally thousands that fit that description. But apparently, no, there was this guy that I never saw, that everyone always said was at at the dining commons, and I'd go to try to find him, and I could never see him. So there was like this phantom me that went to school at the exact same time that I did, that I was always kind of like trying to track down.
Yeah.
That everyone else saw except for me. It feels very like, I don't know, like Alice in Wonderland-y.
Yeah.
Just like, who is this guy? Is he into the same things as me? Does he like the same music?
Yeah.
Is he like kind of a nerd? What is this person's like profile, or is he totally opposite? Is he into sports? Is he smart?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
It's so. We're talking about like how these people come up in the world. That you look at those websites and the celebrity ones, and a lot of people from the 1850s look like some people from today.
Yeah.
But maybe a lot of people just kind of look generally the same, and if you do find that one picture, you can just pinpoint him and say, like, oh, he looks like that guy.
Yeah.
I assume that this guy looked somewhat like me, the way that Jacob looks.
Sort of like you, yeah.
Kind of like.
Do you think it's like a caricature, like with each new president, there is an impersonation or an editorial cartoon caricature, and it's these attributes that stand out a little bit, but not much more beyond that?
Maybe someone has a big nose or big ears or an overbite or looks like a monkey or whatever, like George W. Bush. Like everyone was just like, oh, he looks like a monkey. He just looks like a chimpanzee.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I don't know what my outstanding attribute is. I'm pretty plain looking. I wear glasses, but I don't wear I wear dark hormone glasses now, but like in college, I was just coming out of high school and I had like these plain gold, boring, hideous glasses. I had I look, sometimes Emily and I will watch like old music videos from the 90s, and like I had every haircut that was there. It was just like parted brown, kind of midway down to my eyebrows, parted in the middle, and was like super boring, just like everybody else did. And it was like, there could have been hundreds of this guy that I just never saw.
Yeah. All right, Richard, your second one.
All right, so in the movie Scott Pilgrim versus the World, there is something of what you think is going to be a sort of like surprise ending after the main bad guy is killed off, Gideon. He sort of, as he's dying, he sort of introduces this concept of, well, you can defeat me, but can you defeat yourself? And we're introduced to Nega-Scott.
Yeah.
Who is basically Scott Pilgrim, but with red glowing eyes. And I know in the comic version of him, he's basically the accumulation of every sort of negative attribute and every bad thing that's ever happened to Scott Pilgrim. In the movie, on the other hand, he's basically just sort of built up as the Mr. Mxyzptlk, I think, version of Scott Pilgrim.
Can you spell that, please, for the audience, just real quick?
Mr. Mxyzptlk?
Yeah, just run that off for just real quick.
Mister, then I know the rest.
Okay,
so.
that's right.
And he goes off to fight him, Nega-Scott, by himself. And a couple of minutes later, you see them walking out, talking to each other about this brunch place that they need to go to. And Scott's basically like, "No, it's cool. He's like a really cool guy. Like we've got a lot in common." And that's the last bad guy that he has to defeat.
Be cool with yourself.
I just think that there's a message in there. There is a message in there somewhere about how you can defeat the negative things that you have inside your head.
Yeah.
But mainly, it's just a great little tag at the end of this movie that you think is going to be built up into this Because that's kind of a trope that we've seen in video games, we've seen in movies, TV shows, where you have to defeat some like alter ego version of yourself. It's like the evil, like negative version of yourself. And I guess what this kind of just posits is, what if it turns out that you're not even the negative version of yourself is pretty much still you. You still like the same things. Yeah. Still would like to hang out with each other. And I'll just bring up, I'll use any opportunity to bring up Scott Pilgrim versus the World that I can, because it's such a fantastic movie, and it's so filled with these sort of like turning these pop culture tropes on their head that this is like basically like the last one that they get to do.
What if like the negative aspects were just like, he's just, not as good a tipper. He's not necessarily like a terrible tipper, but he's just
10%.
Like he's just one of those guys that like, or maybe just like an a-hole when he tips. Like he's the guy that puts out like the $5 bills and then pulls one back. Like what if he's just like, he's still kind of tipping, but he's just kind of sucks.
Kind of a jerk about it.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that what you're looking for in your potential MyClone is what Scott confronted in Nega-Scott or whatever?
Right.
Is that you think that there's this person who might share common traits or might even be maybe more compelling or interesting or something like that, or and maybe you could see yourself, look in a mirror with that person.
I guess maybe it's also like the fear that like, what if I meet this person and he's exactly like me and that diminishes me? So like it cuts whatever is special about me in half. It's just like, oh, you're exactly like me?
Yeah. You do you. There's nobody else like you. No, fuck, my clone is just fucking like me.
Literally just like me, yeah.
He stands an inch and a half taller, and the guy can bench 300 pounds. God damn it.
Oh, that's pretty strong.
Yeah,
that's
I'd
pretty
like
good.
to meet that guy.
Yeah, hold on a second.
Okay, Michael, what's yours? If this is you, Michael, what's your second?
Well, if you're talking about final battles, Richard, in a video game, battling yourself, none better than Link in the video game The Legend of Zelda Part 2, The Adventures of Link, where he fights Shadow Link, which is just like a black, complete shadow version of himself that has all the same moves. He can do like up thrust and down thrust, and it's getting a little steamy in here now.
Ooh.
Hey, hello.
And he's like the final boss isn't in this video game series that usually are fighting like Ganon or that pig guy. It's like, no, you fight a dark version of yourself that can do everything that you can do, and you just have to be better than the most evil version of yourself. And I just kind of, like that, even with Doppelgangers, is like that's ultimately you're confronting yourself. And unlike Scott Pilgrim, they didn't walk out at the end hand in hand and recommending Branch that, someone was defeated via swordplay.
I like this pick, I think, and I can only say I think because this is one of my like weird thing. I basically never played Legend of Zelda.
Any of them?
No, not really. Never owned it. Maybe over at somebody's house once or twice and kind of like fiddled around with it. It's not my kind of game. I don't like those sort of. I'm not a fan of like adventure RPG type shit.
Yeah, the first one wasn't much of an RPG. I'm trying to think of the second one. You kind of defeated enemies and got some sort of hit points and eventually built up kind of power stuff. But it was weird. The second one was different than any of the other games because it turned from like this overhead moving around a map sort of game into like these weird cutscenes where there was like side scrolling, kind of like a Mario Brothers thing where you're jumping on people. So it had like this 2-part thing where it was, I don't know, it was an interesting game, and I don't remember any of the other games being like that.
I just think people our age, Zelda is such like a defining game, and it's just one of those conversations when people start talking about it.
You just
kind of,
you just have a blank spot,
or like, yeah, sure,
a dark.
I just sort of try to stumble my way through it, and the reality is, I never had patience for games that required multiple days, like quest sort of things.
It had to be a game that you had to lay out a giant board and put cards down and play different baseball games. Okay,
right. No, I just never had patience for games that were like where you couldn't sit down and there was a finite beginning and an ending
within a couple hours.
Once, yeah, but sure, why not? Sounds like a good pick.
How many? Can you think of other feature films where the person has to basically defeat themselves, like defeat a clone? It seemed like that was the dystopian thing that Arnold Schwarzenegger and a lot of people were doing in action films. Was defeating a clone, defeating another version of themselves, and a multiverse version of this. What was the Jackie Chan film where he has to fight? It's called like The One or something, where he has to defeat all these alternative universe versions of himself, and each time he does, he gets their power.
Oh.
So that clone becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. But
Schwarzenegger had he had to kind of defeat himself in Total Recall, but it was like the version of him that was evil was still him.
Yeah.
But his mind was erased and he was sent back to Earth.
Yeah.
But then he got a video of himself and he was like just a total dick. And he was just like, yeah, you're doing all this work and you think you're defeating the bad guys, but I'm you and I'm the bad guy and I can't wait to get my mind back. But you, this loser who's back on Earth, you're just playing right into everyone's hands. So keep going, or something like that.
Jean-Claude Van Johnson had some amazing things with the...
Really? I still haven't seen it.
I was so cynical sitting down to it, thinking how kind of meta is this going to be, or how funny will this be? And it's one of the funniest 4-part series I've ever seen in my life. And it's Jean-Claude Van Damme is improbably hilarious in it, but it's also self-referential, where he plays Jean-Claude Van Damme, who has always been, while he's been an action film star, a secret operative on the side. And he has this woman who was his partner/lover, who he's fallen out with, but he's now put back on assignment. Yeah, so Jean-Claude Van Johnson's really good. And he does reference Time Cop a lot. Like the actor, Jean-Claude Van Damme, was a huge fan of Time Cop, and nothing's better than Time Cop. And he basically grills people multiple times about how much they love Time Cop. Okay. So, that legend, Robin Williams' son, Zelda. Son? Daughter Zelda was named after Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
Because Zach named him. His son was playing that video game.
I'm sure. I think he was like a pretty big video game head too for a while.
Oh yeah. He was.
We
playing
just
with
watched the documentary on HBO, and like they don't mention that at all, which I thought was interesting, or it was very telling. That it's just like, who wants to hear them talk about how much of a big video game guy he was? It's like, that's not compelling.
That's not
documentary stuff.
Yeah,
it's some guy sitting around. Although the Steven Spielberg doc, they talk about how he's a big video game guy. So who the fuck knows?
Oh yeah, that's interesting. I think Spielberg, as somebody who's very interested in emerging storytelling tools and things like that and stuff and technology. Okay, so we are at our halftime, and this is the Mount Rushmore podcast, and you are the audience that we value and appreciate, and we wish you would take it up a level and join us by going onto the Facebook, YouTube. Wait, no, we don't have YouTube. Join us on the Facebook, and we do?
Yeah, we got YouTube. Oh,
shit, really?
Up on YouTube, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can not watch it or watch it as long as you like.
Okay. Go to the Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and follow us on all the social handles. With the Facebook site, you could go up and suggest a topic that you'd like to hear us discuss, or you could even go say what you think about the topics that we have discussed. You could end up, like some listeners have, as a participant in the podcast. You can also support podcasts in general by supporting all the great kind of up-and-coming emergent podcasts out there, and here's one of them.
Hey everyone, this is Toph, host of Gravity Beard, a podcast featuring interviews and discussions on a wide range of topics. In each episode, I'll either interview a special guest, or we'll convene our typical Algonquin roundtable of brilliant minds. Occasionally, we'll even be joined by the host of one of your other favorite podcasts. Then every other week, my buddy Adam stops by for an installment of This Week Today. Whatever we do each week, we promise you'll be entertained. You can find Gravity Beard on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else quality podcasts are sold. And you can always find us and other indie pods in the Underdog Podcast community on Facebook. We're also a member of the Podfix Network. Come check us out. Gravity Beard. It's what your ears will want to be listening to.
And we want to give you something as a thank you for all your loyalty to this podcast. We want you to go to why do I say that? We want you to go to audibletrial.com/Rushmore and download a free book on us, a free audiobook on us that you can listen to on your iPhone, your Android, your Kindle, your MP3 player. Why you might listen to From Beyond the Grave, True Terrifying Tales of Doppelgangers by B. Perry E. Scars and Glenn Pavlovich. That is an Audible audiobook that you get to keep with your free trial. You don't have to give it back. I don't know how you would, but you don't have to. you can keep that, or you can choose from 180,000 other titles or more for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, please do that and go to audibletrial.com/Rushmore and get that free audiobook. And We is back. We's back. Richard, what is your third?
All right, so my third one is everyone from the Pulp music video for Bad Cover version.
Ooh.
Which
okay.
I don't know, did we discuss this
one.
at all on the show one time, Michael? I think maybe I really
yes,
briefly
yes.
referenced it, but I don't think it was like an official pick. But I thought this was a good, if you haven't heard the episode that we referenced this in, please go do yourself a favor. Go watch this music video.
Please go do yourself.
Also,
okay, sorry.
as
dude.
a favor.
Okay, sorry.
Do
Please,
yourself.
Please.
It's essentially the whole setup for the music video is that it's a tribute to Pulp. Because this is like one of their later singles, like late 90s, maybe even early 2000s. And that some of the biggest acts in music have gathered to perform this tribute, and it's all set up like a Live Aid or like a Band Aid, type, We Are the World type thing, where all these musicians all get in and are going to sing like one line from the song.
Yeah.
And I think the genius part of the video is they got all of these celebrity impersonators to impersonate David Bowie and Bjork, and this whole gamut of different musicians that are in this video. Then they actually had the celebrity impersonators sing the line as if they were actually singing it.
Yeah.
And it just makes for like a really fun, different take on a music video because, oh, look, there's George Michael singing one of the lines. Oh, it's Bono singing one of the lines. You actually only get the real lead singer from Pulp singing one of the lines, and it's not actually him. It's
a lookalike.
It's a Jarvis Cocker lookalike.
Oh, okay.
Jarvis Cocker does make an appearance in the video as Brian May at the very end of the video with the big curly hair and everything. Yeah. And they even had a Kurt Cobain impersonator in there. Of course, this was like 7 or 8 years after Kurt Cobain had died.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's a music video, so what the hell?
What was the concept? You think it was a concept of just spoofing or satirizing one of these
self-important
charity mega singles,
sort of charity mega singles, which I think still happen a lot more in England than they do in the U.S.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of taking the piss out of all those sort of like, hey, let's get together for a good cause sort of thing, where it's mainly more about the musicians getting their 30 seconds of FaceTime and being seen as good people. Of course, they had Phil Collins drumming to it because Phil Collins drums at everything.
Yeah. That does seem to be a thing that still happens there. The Oxfam fundraiser.
They
the
have
Red
these
Nose
things-
Day is huge there.
Red Nose.
Yeah. Yeah, they do this thing called charity there. Where they
yeah.
think about other people. And they try to raise money and do good things for other people.
We do that here, but the politicians, they just actually channel it to their actual businesses.
Straight into their bank accounts.
Okay, so what was the name of that again? What was the video?
Bad cover version.
Bad cover version. Okay. Michael, what do you got for your third?
My third is the Mirror Universe from Star Trek, the original series.
Wow.
The Evil Spock.
Evil
That's
Spock.
a great
That's
one.
the
Yeah,
best
that's
one.
a great one.
Evil Spock is one of the biggest.
Well, the funny thing about Evil Spock is that he wasn't really evil. He was just like
emotional.
He was just like he had a goatee.
Yeah.
He was just their universe's version, and it was still like very Spocky.
Do you think Leonard Nimoy was just being a dick in the writers' room, or still like complained about the lack of juicy scenes that he had, and people were like, "God, the guy who plays Spock is just evil. What an evil!" Hey, there's a plot line. Nimoy's an asshole. Yeah, write it in.
Yeah, and you think maybe Shatner was whispering in there. Yes, that's a great
I like that
line.
idea.
I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's the idea of like the multiverse. I think is always interesting, and a show like Star Trek could explore that in fun and silly ways in terms of just like, you just slap a goatee on someone and slightly change the history on who invaded whom and who was in control of the military spaceships.
Yeah.
And like that's all you need to do, and you're like, okay, well, everything's completely different.
Well, it seems like I always feel like the comic, unfortunately, I don't know. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but it just seems like the comic book DC and Marvel universe are just rife with multiple versions of each character.
Yeah.
You can find one to your liking and stick with that one. You can find kind of the classic Coke or go with the new Coke or the diet offshoot or the thing with vanilla or cherry in it. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think as a storytelling device, like alternate universes are fine.
Yeah.
I think with DC Comics and stuff, I think at some point they kind of got in over their heads, and they tried to kind of rectify them by combining all the universes into one. But then I think what ended up happening is you ended up losing what people liked about the characters in the first place. They liked those stories. They liked that these people had history, even though like their current history didn't make sense or match up. But I think once you start removing it, and DC Comics is in particular really famous for rebooting their universe over and over and over. It's like Batman's been around for what, 70 years now?
Yeah.
And like in their comics, he just started fighting crime, or Superman just arrived, and there's none of the history of anything that happened. And at some point, you're just like, it's more interesting if you can weave in a character's history than to just kind of wipe it out and start fresh.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that the Mirror Mirror episode, and that they kind of really, that show was really good at going into a different universe or a different reality and then coming back.
Yeah.
They wanted to go into a cowboy world and tell a cowboy story, and then they came back. In this one, they wanted to go into a world where, there was evil Kirk, and then, quote, evil Spock overthrew him and took over and whatever. And then they just, then the real ones came back. They didn't really have those sort of ramifications where maybe Mirror Universe Spock came back. What if he was the one that actually throughout everything was like, oh yeah, they swapped places and no one knew, and they never told the stories. But I don't think Star Trek back in the day was about that. I don't think they thought longer than the episode of the week.
No. Yeah.
If they were to tell that story now, there would be hints, and they would be it would be a 3-year story arc that eventually it was revealed that evil Spock was really the one that's been here for.
Yeah.
And, they drop all these clues and write little things. But, like, they, in the 60s and 70s, I don't think they thought about.
Do you watch Flash at all? Either of you guys?
No.
Yeah, they had a big evil, not to spoil it too much, guys, spoiler alert, but there's
Was
one
it
of the...
Reverse Flash?
There was
Which one?
Reverse Flash, and there's also one of the...
Shelf.
What?
Flash backwards.
Oh, flag backward, thank you. No, one of the other main characters
He
is...
puts his clothes on.
He goes really slowly. But there's a main character who is revealed to be sort of like an alternate universe evil version of that character. And yeah, I mean, they set it up for like a whole season, basically, until they reveal it. And you're right. There's no way you would have that. Because Star Trek was not meant to be episodic.
Yeah.
It was not meant to have long-term storylines. It's like, but the Discovery, is that the new one, Discovery, I think?
I think so.
That's the first one that's really like sort of had longer-term sort of plots that go from beyond week to week.
I remember, too, we're off on a whole Star Trek thing now. Like, Deep Space Nine, that entire series was all about, like, the
arc.
I don't want to say Kardashian because I know it's not Kardashian, but it might be. Kardashian, not Kardashian. The Cardassians. And I remember, like, it was like the entire thing was about, like, the conflict between the Federation and the Cardassian Empire. And it was like, oh my God, get a different alien on there. I don't care.
Well, they only had the budget for one alien.
They had the budget for the big ears guy.
Yeah.
And then they had the budget for like that one, the one headpiece that they just slapped on. They're like, everybody get in here. How hot and sweaty would that have been?
Oh my God.
Do you think with the advent of home video, filmmakers and storytellers are now can erase the idea that somebody might not be familiar with it or may have forgotten some things in the previous episode, so that you could now do a season arc? And I think now when people are binging things, you got to presume that they're often watching one right after another.
Oh, sure. It must be totally... The approach to writing must be so different if you're like, there's going to be 13 episodes and this is a 13-part story versus here's 26 episodes of this half-hour sitcom or 22 episodes of a 48-minute TV series. plus commercials,
Yeah.
and you're just, you have to constantly, the old TV model, you had to recatch people up all the time.
Do you think there's precedent? I think of the idea of a mirror universe or a doppelganger as somebody who is like an evil twin. What would its precedent be? Because I know that there have been twins throughout history. The idea that two individuals can resemble each other but have distinctly different personalities, and that I think the ideas of demonic possession have been, or in mental illness have been used in narrative and literature and drama. But I'm trying to think of if this is such a contemporary thing, because I only think of it as the stuff of fantasy storytelling, the idea that one would go to a mirror universe or be transformed through some kind of, or actually I would say even in Shakespeare, in Midsummer Night's Dream, there's all kinds of spells being cast, something that will change.
I would imagine that there is like a tradition of fairy tales where people are constantly changing, and being replaced, or
they're
something.
being bewitched.
Nothing jumps to mind, but
ultimately, it's about, I think, individuals using that kind of wish fulfillment fantasy of exploring their lesser instincts or their more immoral selves. So I think that's what its appeal is.
The classic: if you could be someone else for the day, what would you do?
Yeah.
And it's always like, I would just go kill someone or whatever. I would do all these awful things.
Yeah, if you could use that as an excuse to get out of jail free card for being an asshole, it was my evil twin. I just wonder where that comes from. Okay, your final one, Richard.
Okay, so this is not an evil doppelganger, but it's a story of a doppelganger, in fact, who got into a lot of trouble for being a doppelganger. Real life story of Trina Johnson Finn. Now, she is a Toni Braxton impersonator, which is a very narrow and specific thing to be, but hey, she works in Vegas, so, whatever, it works. Works for her. And she got hired to go do a performance in Suriname, down in South America.
Yeah.
And she didn't think too much about it. Other people she knew had been hired to go do similar gigs down there. So she's like, okay, sure, fine. They're going to pay me whatever, a few $1,000. Great, no problem.
Yeah.
Went down there. About 1.5 songs in, people started booing, throwing things at her. Like the audience, revolted.
Oh, wow. That's typical. That's an actual Toni Braxton concert. That happens too.
True. Usually, they have had trouble with skinheads at the Toni Braxton shows, and also in lots of revolts in Suriname, I would imagine. But she gets off. She's like, they can't call it short. She doesn't understand what's going on. Goes back to the hotel, gets her shit. Is like, I'm getting out of here. They stop her at the airport and detain her and eventually arrest her for fraud. What she didn't realize is that the promoter had actually booked it and promoted it as a Toni Braxton concert.
Oh, God. Okay.
And hadn't told her. And was hoping that she would go out there and be close enough to the real thing that people wouldn't notice. Mm-hmm. And that he could get away with whatever money was going to be made from that.
Wow. So she was
totally innocent in all this.
Yeah.
And after a couple of weeks, it got sorted out. They wanted to bring in the promoter. Found up catching him, and he wound up getting a 2-year suspended sentence and probably paid a bunch of money to get out of it. But I just think, what a wild thing, Can you just imagine her being on stage and just unbreak my thud, getting whacked with a tomato or something like that, and not being able to figure out, okay, guys, I'm not that bad at this.
Well, as a person who spends his summers as an MC at a concert venue in which only lookalike sounded like bands perform, I'm surprised that anybody even noticed, because the people in my audience are so drunk that they're never gonna know the difference.
Having gone to a show recently, I can attest to this, especially if you're up on the hill, where you're about 2 miles away from the actual performance.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I think about some of these young sound-alike, look-alike tribute acts is they got more pep in their step than actual Elton John. If the real Foghat comes out, they're not going to play as good as fake Foghat.
Yeah, fake Foghat puts more effort into their performance.
Yeah, we saw One from the Road, the Leonard Skinner cover band, and those guys can pull a better guitar solo than
the actual guys. Well, also, if you go see Leonard Skinner, how many actual real members of Foghat are there at this point? gap between what is a real band, quote unquote, versus the cover version of it can sometimes be pretty blurry.
And it seems like whenever you see the Temptations or the Four Tops or the Spinners, it's always like
they've just been cycling through members for 50 years.
It totally is. It's like it's funny because in hoaxes or God, I don't know if I feel like I've got a couple doppelganger type stories, but I feel like I've told them on mic before.
No, tell them, and then if you have, we'll edit it out.
The college town the city, I went to the University of Kansas, which is in Lawrence, Kansas, and like many college towns, people go there for a 4-year education. They spend about 10 years there, and they get sucked into the kind of small town vibe. And this is small town Kansas, so it's very kind of Mayberry meets Berkeley kind of vibe to it. And I worked at a convenience store one summer, and everybody, it was like right before you got on the turnpike. So everybody stopped off at that convenience store. So if I didn't know you already after 6 years of living in this town, I saw you come through my Quickie Mart every day. And there was a guy who came in, and he was my friend Kevin, but he did not respond to me like my friend Kevin did. And he spent the whole summer coming in and getting a pack of Marlboro Reds and a Big Gulp. And I would be, what's up, man? Hey, have you seen Ron's band? Yeah, Big Toe's playing at the Replay Lounge. You know, we ought to go check him out. And he kind of gave me the nod, like, yeah, sure, man, sure. And fuck me if, like, the last day he didn't say, do you maybe know my brother? Like, I knew this guy for years, and he never said he had a twin brother. He had an identical twin brother.
Twin.
They didn't get along. They didn't like each other. He didn't even like he didn't absorb the identity of being a twin. He didn't want people to know he had a twin brother.
This is definitely a brand new entry to Jeff Cast.
Yeah. And it was a mind fuck extraordinaire. If you think of how those characters in Inception probably felt, it's like, oh my God, are you fucking serious?
Does it do that thing where like you start putting all the pieces together, like a Christopher Nolan film? It's all just flashbacks.
Click
and things are just
clack.
Click, and it's like, oh, you're right.
Oh shit, Kaiser
the Top Hats
Soze
was the thing that's going on, and he was his twin from. Oh my God!
Well, your friend Kevin, right? His brother.
Yeah.
How long did it take him to realize? Well, maybe he's talking about my identical twin. You would think that would be something that would come up pretty early on. Like
your first instinct is, oh no, he's thinking of my exact
asshole
twin.
brother. Yeah.
Well, I imagine my interactions with him were what I thought were familiar interactions. If you see somebody you know and you kind of give him the head nod, you think you're saying hi to your good buddy. And he just thinks, oh, it's a friend, the guy behind the counter wearing the orange vest at the Quickie Mart.
But you're offering specifics.
Yeah.
Like,
it was just so weird.
It was so nice to see you the other night. Yeah, okay, man.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Hey, you bought that $20 you owe me. Yeah, whatever, man.
It was just bizarre. Okay, Michael, wrap it up.
I got a dopey one to end it.
Yay.
We were talking about comics earlier and how convoluted they can be. And in the world of Spider-Man, in the early to mid-90s, it didn't get more convoluted than whatever was happening with Spider-Man, the Doppelganger Spider-Man, and eventually the Spider-Clone, which became Ben Reilly, which became the Scarlet Spider, which is just like, by the time...
What the fuck?
By the time the end of the 90s happened, you're just like, I read 200 Spider-Man comics, and I cannot tell you what happened.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to explain, but it sounds like you would have a hard time doing that.
I'll start at the, I guess, where I can.
Were these in the same publication, or were they one-off, spin-offs?
Well, at some point, Spider-Man had like 4 comics going.
Yeah.
It had Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, and Web of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So at some point, you had to kind of keep up with...
He was in Marvel Team Up, maybe that was the 80s when I was reading.
At some point, Spider-Man was top dog, and then he was replaced by Wolverine. And Wolverine was just in everything. And it was just like...
Yeah.
But so at some point in the early 90s, there is a comic series called Infinity War, which has nothing to do with the movie that just came out.
Yeah.
It was about this time-traveling older version of this character called Adam Warlock, who the evil version of him came back in time and acquired the Infinity Gauntlet, and he called himself Magus or Magus, I don't know.
Yeah.
And with that, he created like evil versions of like the Marvel heroes. And all of them eventually died out except for like the Spider-Man one, who was looked like Spider-Man, as doppelgangers do, but he had like 8 arms, and he had like a clawed hands and like nasty teeth and everything. And Spider-Man battled him for a bunch of time, a bunch of episodes or issues, and he teamed up with a bunch of other people like Hobgoblin, and all the whatever. And eventually, it was just so convoluted and stupid, and you're just like, I guess so. He kind of looks interesting, but whatever. But Marvel never one to not.
They're not going to eliminate
beat an idea to death.
Okay.
They're like, okay, what if we took Spider-Man but had like a clone of him, and let's reintroduce that clone version of him back into his life as a guy that's Spider-Man but blonde.
Yeah,
but maybe he's the actual real Spider-Man. That the clone, that the Spider-Man you've known and loved for 30 years is the clone.
Somehow the clone.
And you just, by the end of like this 2.5 year storyline, you're just like, just go back to telling Spider-Man stories where he's getting mad at J. Jonah Jameson or whatever. And I think that there is an interesting thing when you're fighting like the other in a comic book. It seems like you talked about earlier. It seems to happen a lot that there's like the only true version that is capable of really testing you is you.
Yeah.
Especially if you're, Thor and you're super strong.
Yeah.
If you're infinitely powerful, the only person that can beat you is you.
Yeah.
And I think that often these things, they happen, they're fun, they're great, they look cool, and then they're, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think of ultimately it didn't result from this, but like, you've probably seen that meme, whatever, of Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you did it. And I love that the idea that has been going on. Like that was from a cartoon from the 70s.
Yeah.
That the idea of like the evil you that's just anybody could be Spider-Man if you put on Spider-Man costume.
Yeah.
Because it's
I can?
you can be.
I love that
shit.
within the auspices of bad animation, that's probably like a boon to the animators. Oh shit, really? Oh yeah, we just go to the Xerox machine and make the bad guy for this one?
Flip him around.
Oh yeah, the bad guy is the same as the good guy? All right, we're going to take the summer off here at Hanna-Barbera.
Call the Koreans, let them know.
Yeah. Well, that's very fascinating. That is a fun topic to discuss with you guys. If I am discussing this with you guys, I don't know if it's true or not. So I did say early on that I thought the Lincoln's doppelganger would be one. But who was that guy who said that earlier on? I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's not. Even though I've been sitting here the whole time and haven't had any time.
None of us have gotten up.
Okay.
The big curtain that went down for all of 7 seconds, then rose back up. Though that might have.
If this is Jeff's doppelganger, he's better than the real thing.
He's better.
As good as at least.
As good as at least.
Well, I'll pick that one, Lincoln's Doppelganger. I really liked the Link fighting Shadow Link in Legend of Zelda. That's super cool because it was personal. Michael, the MyClone, I think was really compelling. And fuck it, since I like Marvel Comics, I'm going to go with Spider-Man. So that is the judgment. Nobody said overruled, so it must be holding. And then
do we have an wait?
We have an appeal
and
process?
This has been the Mount Rushmore podcast.
Circuit?
My name is Jeff. I'm Richard. I'm Michael.
Wait a second. Hold
That's
on.
the end of the show.
He's trying to get out of that